Good evening. Tonight, Minority Caucus brings you the man Nana-Addo, just as we promised. And you can also hear us on Joy FM as we talk to the man Nana-Addo. Decisive, courageous, and yet compassionate, Nana has been traveling the country. Indeed, not for the first time. Nana has been traveling the country several times, over and over and over again. But the difference is that this time he is listening to Ghanaians. We want to see a clip of what he has been listening to as Ghanaians reach out to Nana and Nana reaches out to him. But before then, I want us to see the face that we have all been waiting for. Nana, you're welcome.
Thank you very
to
much.
Minority Caucus.
Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you for having me.
Take liberties.
Yes.
Let me ask permission of the party chairman and call you Nana.
Please go ahead. You do that. You do that already.
Thank you. So let's take our first clip of the listening campaign tour of the Ashanti region. Several communities in the Ashanti region touched by Nana whilst he listens to them. Now, Nana, in a speech in 2007, you made an observation, and if I may paraphrase you, you said, in over 30 years of frontline politics, the more you travel across the country, the more urgent you thought we needed to fight poverty and win the war if this country was to progress. But what has changed now? You've been traveling this country for several years. Why a listening campaign now?
Oh, first of all, I think interacting with the people you want to serve and lead is always a good thing. It allows you to be abreast of the current problems. You go somewhere 3 years ago and the conditions of life in the same place may not necessarily be the same today. So you want to be up to date, and you want to be able to see for yourself in concrete terms, because there's a tendency for some of us in Accra to say these are the problems, but yet when you go out there, you find that the priorities of people may be different from what you may have thought. So it's important also to engage, to be able to be sure that you are really touching people and addressing matters that concern them directly, not your understanding of what their problems are.
They're talking at people.
Yes, but their own problems, you know. So one of the things that has really amused me to some extent is that my critics are asking, how come I want to be president of the Republic and I don't know what the problems are? What am I going to go and listen to? I'm very surprised to hear this, especially from people who claim to have a patent on door-to-door and house-to-house campaigning. I don't know what it is, door-to-door or house-to-house, who claim to have invented it as a form of political campaigning. I'm not quite sure I'm up to speed on that. No, but more seriously, I think it's important. I think the political leaders, those who aspire to high office at all levels of the ladder, not just those who aspire to high level, to be in constant interaction and with those whom they want to serve and lead, it must be a good thing, because it means that at any one stage they're situated in reality. They know what the problems are out there, and then from the perspective with which they have come into office, attempt to address those problems. I think it's extremely important for us, what I'm doing, and yes. I'm deriving, and I also find the contact with the Ghanaian people always very invigorating. Yes. We have a very, very, very intelligent people, a very compassionate, very kind, caring people, and with a tremendous sense of humor. Even in the most difficult circumstances, there's always a way that they come at you with something that allows you to laugh and relieve the tension, etc. So it's a good experience for me. I enjoy it, and I'm certainly enjoying this one a great deal.
It's been a good experience for your communications team, because interesting things have come up which have benefited us.
Okay.
For example, today in Tema East, I don't know if you heard, but in the background somebody was heard to say, so on Shaswadi, yes, what a guy. You know,
yes,
receptions, yes. We've heard people say, oh, he's such a nice man. Yes, and they told us he was arrogant.
Yes.
We've come across all sorts of expressions.
The propaganda machine of the people on the other side. It's important for them to paint me as an ogre, some sort of madman, a man who's out of touch with the realities of our people, somebody who even, apparently I'm told in some cases, there's a woman who was very surprised when she shook my hands.
Yeah.
So, but they say that you don't shake hands, and if you do, you have to clean them up, or you wear gloves and things like that. These are these absurd attempts to demonize me. And I suppose a part of their worry is that going around like this and showing yourself to people as you are is doing away with a lot of those perceptions. And perhaps that may not serve their propaganda purposes so well in the future.
What have you been told, Nana?
All kinds of things. I mean, many of the things are things that you can already you can anticipate. But there's some fundamental things that seem to run through every place that I'm going to. One, of course, our people are very struck on the quality of the road network in our country. So the cry for roads is almost universal, even in the big cities, doing our roads. Yesterday, I was in Mataheko, in Ablekuma Central, and it's very much the talk all over the country, our roads. Jobs for people, especially for the young. And that one is also something that you see face up. Village after village, small town, big town, wherever you go, young people milling around, having nothing to do. Owari, Dami, Ludu, Spa, that's their
from daybreak to night.
All the time, sitting there doing that. You have also a tremendous concern about education in Ghana. There's one of the things about our country that really we ought to build on, that ordinary people in Ghana recognize quite rightly what education can do in terms of transforming their lives, and therefore their desire as much as possible to push their wards, their children, their nephews, whatever, into the educational lab. But then they're confronted with major problems. The main problem, of course, being first of all access, and secondly money. That they're not able to raise the monies. The monies keep going up and up. Their own incomes and are not going up in an equivalent manner, so that there's a really big difficulty about dealing with how you can educate your ward. I mean, one of the things was a young man in Obuasi, Abdul. He had to drop out at the senior secondary school level in the second year because there's no money at home. And that language is a language you hear all the time. You know, in tree, and what did you into school mention me to us? Mention me and call SHS, no junior no cry, call a crying, you train me for if that is and it's a sad. Or trying, he has to do something, help out in the farm, something. He's unable to continue with his education. And it's a very sad comment on where we want to go as a nation. That's why I'm saying that. Let us make a concerted effort for a generation to educate in the public sector the Ghanaian people, and as much as possible insulate the parents from the cost of that education at the primary level. Let the state take on that burden, so that within a decade we will then have a largely educated populace. We're not going to be able to address the development paradigm and achieve the goals that we want to, so long as we're dealing within a population that is half illiterate. It's not an accident that in the Asian nations, Japan, Korea, the Malaysians, those who are now held up to us as models that we want, that immense sums of money were invested in primary and secondary as well as tertiary education to make sure that the population became modern in its knowledge structure. I think it is, and the example of it is being seen in these tremendous strides. You're talking about countries that began at the same level of economic development as us, who today have a distance us by 30, 40, 50%. The classic example, of course, is South Korea, which came into independent life more or less the same time as us, more or less the same levels of per capita income, the same structure of economy, largely raw material, agricultural-based economies, and who today, whilst we are, 1,600, 1,700 per capita income, which was the figure for 2010, we're talking about nearly $30,000 per capita income in South Korea, largely because of the transformation that they're able to effect in the structure of their national economy.
So to you, education makes
a key. It is a key. It is an absolute key. Apart from of course, it's other equally important. I mean, apart from preparing people for if you like, a more enhanced economic life and activity, but also has equally important social, psychological, and cultural defects. Access to information, broadening people's scope, and the way that they look and think about things, and plugging them into the 21st century. So that all of this, one of the things we have to do in all our schools, if we have the opportunity, when we come again, we're going to do it. All the secondary schools of Ghana have to be wired up. The information that there is out there on the internet is vaster, greater, more complete, more comprehensive, more universal than anything you can find in a library. Yes, it's a fact.
So you are not only going to provide free education, you want to enhance quality.
We want to enhance the quality. Because without it, we're not. We're looking in the country. One of the things that is to some extent sad about Ghana is that our history, our own history, where we're coming from, a lot of the time, because of the turbulence that has occurred in the last 40 odd years in our history, 50 years in our history, it tends to be forgotten. This country had an educational system that was second to none in Africa at the end of the colonial period. everybody recognized
You went to Saito yourself.
I did. Yes, absolutely. Government school. From there, I went to school in England. My father decided to send me to school in England. It made no difference to the state of my development. I found that I had as much numeracy and literacy skills coming out of government school in Accra as people who had gone to private school in England of my same age. Yeah. It told you about the quality of education. That was the background which we had in this country. And somehow or rather, we've dissipated that capital. It is important. And this is one of the things that President Akufo brought out, which I thought was an extremely progressive idea. The idea of the model school, that in every district in Ghana, we would have a model school which would be, as it were, the focal point for pulling up educational standards in every district. It would be the school which the brighter people in the district would go to, and it would be the school that would provide the standards by which other schools in the district would be measured. So this, for me, it is an extremely important development that we have to master. Excellent. We've got to put our mouth and our heart where it is and make sure that this generation of Ghanaians do not suffer the problems that previous generations have suffered. And then we have a generation that opens us up, that is now fully clued into, and Ghana, every time something of value occurs, the way in which our people, even with all the difficulties that confront them, embrace them, tells you that our people are extremely open for all of this modernization process. Right. Take, for instance, the mobile phone. You'll find the most extraordinary places you find people on the mobile phone.
At this point, somebody is using a modern contraption to send you a message. So let me take it. It says, this is Staniel Agato from the Volta region, who says, no matter how the NDC try to paint Nana, he will surely be in the castle come 2012. You are the best man for Ghana.
Mr. Stanley, that's very kind of you. I'm really appreciative of that comment. Thank you.
Nana-Addo, what alternative policy will you bring to the presidency that will incentivize small businesses? Because I believe they have the potential to engage a lot of our youth. That's anonymous. Nana, you have the opportunity
to respond to some
to respond to them. Yes. So the key ones, you make a note of them. That one is particularly important because of the large informal sector. Nana, you are our hope. You are the only one who can save us from the current economic hardship in this country. God bless MPP, God bless Nana-Addo, and most of all, God bless Ghana. Nana, people do not believe that secondary education can be made free. Even the current subsidies do not come on time. So please take the opportunity to convince Ghanaians that you can do it. And from the way Nana is speaking about education, you can see the passion just flowing out. And I want to question his passion after this. Simon from Walwali says, Nana, good to see you. You're still looking fit and healthy. Long live Nana, long live MPP, long live Ghana. And we'll take a first break at this point, and when we come back, we'll go to see what tickles Nana, his beliefs, his convictions, his passions. We'll take a break. Welcome to Minority Caucus. I believe you are excited at home the same way I am in the studio, because Minority Caucus of the MPP promised you Nana, and tonight we have Nana for you. Now let's take another excerpt of the listening campaign. This is about the fisherman's concern.
Me wole God. Go buy Kumasi, go buy no man to 70 million. 70 million. Mogo Tami Ega 70 million. Each again mogo smu match mogo mo get 165. Aga 70 million. No, every to ni agbewo. Tani ni bama mi pi. Tani ni bama mi pi. Mo fi am ka eyi wale fi ogbe wa ye ka pay me. Ko ni ka pay fi tan ko ni e wo tu ni. Si go to ni wa am. To ni get 35. To ni na wo e ku mo e get 35. 3.5. 3.5 e wo fi be be ni wo je no. Wo fi ya. 3.5 wo fi wo e ko me
And that was you in Ghana. But it brings me to the question, who really are you? You're so passionate about education, but we hear you were also passionate about football sometime in your youth. And later on, you were extremely passionate about governance. Nana, who are you?
A fairly straightforward Ghanaian. And from the generation from which I come, we had to be concerned, for instance, about the nature of the Ghanaian polity. What kind of Ghana were we prepared to support after independence? The argument in our generation was very live. We were going to go socialist, we were going to go free market, we were going to have a society models to some extent after what was taking place in the then Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, or rather looking at the models of the then West as it was conceived. These were some of the big issues. And by the time that I finished university and started working, I'd come to the conclusion that it was extremely important for us to have an accountable system of governance for our people. That if really we're going to make a good fist out of going forward in our development, we needed to have a system of governance that made sense for us. And essentially, that was in terms of establishing in Ghana principles of democratic accountability. I think right from the beginning of the nationalist movement in Ghana, our people had adapted very quickly to the idea of the multi-party state. If you look, for instance, at the big arguments in the 50s between Kwame Nkrumah's people and Dr. Danko's people, you could see that our people took very quickly to the idea of different points of view emerging in the public place as the basis for deciding issues. And I felt that perhaps the biggest difficulty that our nation took after independence was abandoning that multi-party model and going down the more authoritarian one-party state model that we saw under Kwame. But nevertheless, today, I think that all shades of opinion, ideological, however you want to look at it, shades of opinion in Ghana are united in the idea that the democratic system of governance is the best for our country. It provides for a certain amount of stability and certainly allows the freedoms, the individual freedoms, which for me are at the heart of the whole human existence, to be able to flourish. We've seen it. I don't think it's an accident that, for instance, the Fourth Republic has proved to be the most enduring and the most stable of the republics we've had. In a very short space of time in our country, we had 4 republics. The First Republic lasted, what, 5.5 years. The Second Republic, 2.5 years. The Third Republic, 2.5 years. This has lasted nearly 20 years as we speak, and has witnessed, what, 5 different important general elections and switches of power between one party and another. There was a time we were being told that all of that, the multi-party state, would degenerate into tribalism and would bring about problems, and that transfers of powers could not be accommodated. We've done it twice. In 2000, the then opposition, our party, came into office. A smooth transfer of power from the previous administration of President Rawlings. The same thing happened again in 2008. Unfortunately, I was the victim, in quotes, of that. But that happened. But at least we have been able to begin to establish the principle that alternance in public life in Ghana need not shake the foundations of the Ghanaian state. That on the contrary, it provides us with a framework which guarantees stability, and at the same time allows the concerns of people to be effectively addressed. There was a big demand for change in 2000, which benefited the NPP. There was clearly a demand for change. I don't know how strong it was, but there was clearly some demand for change in 2008 that benefited the president.
This campaign, it's swinging back.
Well, that's what I see. That's what I see.
You could have been a lawyer.
You mean stuck
by yourself and made a lot of money, made a lot of, you have a huge reputation as a sharp lawyer, and yet you chose to put your life at stake for the people. I think that you could have been a footballer. There was a report about you in the Times.
It's possible. In London. But I think a lot of that really, sometimes, I mean, you are also a prisoner of your background. Okay. And I think that as far as that's concerned, the influence, especially of my father, I can never, ever, ever overlook that. He was very much of the view that the whole business of being an educated person in a largely, quote, illiterate society put a special burden on you to give of yourself, to contribute to the welfare and the progress of the run. He was very much against the idea that because you were reasonably comfortable or privileged or whatever, you could sit in your little corner and watch the world go by. And that it was important for him and his generation, they're the generation, after all, that began the struggle for independence. And then they met in Salpon in 1947, Dr. Dankwa himself, Pawili Akwaje, R.S. Blay, and the rest, that there was a duty on people to involve themselves in the life of those around them and to make sure that they could contribute to enhancing the welfare of the society. It was something that got through to me, and that I found that it was, for me, it meant, it was my way of expressing my humanity. Yeah. Yes, and that it wasn't enough just to be able to make a lot of money and have a good time with your family and yourself, and yet perhaps around you, you see degeneration and decay and difficulties, and that it was important to get involved in trying to better the conditions of your society.
It's been challenging.
Extremely, and very rewarding. I mean, I've come across experiences, I've learned and met people whom I otherwise would never have met, and they have enriched my life. The whole process has enriched my life.
You've exercised your bilingual skills as well regularly. I remember what Machakim.
Yes, and all of that. So it's important, and I continue to feel very strongly about Ghana. Okay. I think if you look at all the things that both nature and history have combined to make of Ghana, if there's any country, the continent of Africa, and I say any country, including South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, whatever, all of these large, who can make a very successful effort to emerge from the image of poverty and conflict and disease and backwardness, which is the way in which the world, unfortunately, continues to look at all things African. If there's a country and a people who are capable of emerging from that on the other side, building functioning states on modern lines that work, building societies that are cohesive and harmonious. Yes, will always be tensions within societies because different groups are all attempting to assert their different interests. But that has a framework for social cohesion and harmony. And that has the possibility of significant national progress in terms of both the empowerment of our people, in terms of enhancing their living standards, as well as the contribution that the Ghanaian nation and the Ghanaian people can make to resolving the problems of Africa. I think that Ghana is that country. And I'm very, 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 I've always been very excited and very, if you like, in some ways, very proud of being part of this race of people that have shown such extraordinary leadership. I mean, here we are. We were 6 million people in the old Gold Coast. And yet we were the first to carry the torch of freedom on our continent. Yes. Our leader at the time became a world figure and an inspirational figure for the rest of our continent. And the rest of what has happened today, our country is being looked upon as the beacon for democratic development, of an example of a country that, with democratic institutions, can also address questions of welfare of the people. I mean, I think all of those things, when you put them together and you look at the creativity of Ghanaians all over the world, one of the things that was a source of great, well, let me use the word again, pride to me when I was foreign minister, is time and time again when you went places, the leaders of those countries will go out of their way to commend the Ghanaian society, the Ghanaian nationals living within their societies. Time and again, Merkel in Germany, the American leaders, all of them, very happy about the contribution that our people are making. And you're watching Ghanaians across the world doing all kinds of very, very sophisticated, high-powered things, as well as small and necessary things as well. But
which
all of that
to be able to do.
But I think that they're interested in doing it so long as they're persuaded that the conditions are right. The way that we're governing ourselves, especially, is comforting and progressive.
And I believe in Ghana, we will look at next text messages, and then we'll take our second break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. This one says, Nana, you have won the 2012 election already. God be with you. This is from Maleki Mamobi. Jafari in Pusiga says, to many people, Nana is a great leader. Others say he is the best man, while several others see him as a giant political gentleman. But to me, he is a born leader. Nana Richard Boating says, Nana, you are all the way to the seat, but my question is about Ghanaians who are willing to import used cars into the country, but are facing high import duty cost. Adokwaku, sir, what specific plans do you have for the Eastern Corridor, especially Aflao, in terms of development, since a lot of the youth are unemployed? Nana, we love you. This is from Kobe Imboko. We'll take our second break at this point. Welcome back to the Minority Caucus. We'll take our last insert, which is about Nana Addo on his rounds in Kaswa. And then we'll continue the discussion.
So, and man is a cotton or so, 7 kutan franc. Now, Mashama Probona said, the meeting that amount for Kumaso, Yamia, Diana, a Quambamu, Nakala for Preswa, the Kudu in the Ababa. Nothing about the Papa, so your Koaka Yajuma, Abwa Emma Ghana for Asitani, Huchabe, the referee hall, and Kaswa Aboman. Now, I say, 50 man time house, 2008, I have a ball from Bar. It's a Juma Cassia, the MPP also, our central region. The plans are to be 2012. And they sell Yelfa Bakuya and tie Yukuyachi and tie Miankasamachi, Yelfa Suno and Conquer. More money. I buy a barbecue. Then we call one by the actual. My simple uses are by a better. Now, I have the culture about the way you are coming. You are about how I could say, how money. I will not say it. Don't you, mamma? Don't you, mamma?
Welcome back. You know why I'm smiling? You heard the voice behind the that was in there. Incidentally, because you are working 5 hours a day now. Nana, you said when Ghanaians worldwide know that the environment is right, they would also contribute their bits and grow Ghana continuously as a beacon. Is that why we saw what we saw in 2008, the unprecedented margin, 0.46%, and you gave up power?
I think it's important that now that we are all committed to the path of democratic development, that those, both the citizens here and abroad, see us political leaders as more committed to the system than to our personal fortunes. It's extremely important. Once that point is made, that the commitment of those of us who are in the forefront of the pro-democracy movement, who now have the opportunity to take high office within a democratic system, that the people whom we are serving and leading see us as committed to the system rather than to our own personal welfare. Because if they don't, if it is that it is your personal projection that matters, no matter the system, at the end of the day, the system will degenerate.
So you're prepared to accept important. Whatever happens in 2012. You're committed to peace. A solid election.
I said it in 2008, and I'm going to repeat it. My point is, let us make sure that we have an election which is sufficiently transparent and fair and free, that its results are easily accommodated by all the players, and or even more importantly, by the people of Ghana. That's what we should be working for. We should not be working to have a situation whereby somehow or other elections become contestable matters. Because in our continent we have seen that if that happens, I mean, like for instance, people are now talking, we're being told that it is possible that the Electoral Commission is going to have a system of biometric registration, which is so-called not with verification. La Côte d'Ivoire, it's a classic example of a country that had a biometric registration system, but it wasn't one which had a verification input at the level of the polling stations. And look at what the dispute in that country brought to that poor country. 5-6 months of tremendous strife, almost at the level of civil war, thousands or hundreds of thousands of Ivorians displaced, several thousands losing their lives, all because of one man's determination to hang on to power at all costs, assisted by the absence of a more concrete, a more valid system of
verification, in spite of the biometric register.
In spite of the biometric.
So that naturally you would see an extension of the biometric register as a verification process. Otherwise,
absolutely, there's no point. I mean, we've had the manual registration process here in our country for all the elections we've had so far, and by and large we've muddled through. There have been moments of tension. There was, like in 2008 and in 2000, in the periods of change. There was also in 1992. But by and large, we've all found a way of accommodating the imperfections, the irregularities of whatever were in the system. If today we're making a conscious decision that we want to improve the quality of our register, improve the quality, therefore, of our electoral process, then it makes sense that if we're taking that important leap and it's going to cost us so much money, then let us get true value for money out of it. Let us make sure that when you then go to the polling station and you put your fingers in the system will say, oh, you've already voted, you can't vote again. Yeah. That is really what it is. And once that is there, the whole process of multiple voting and all of these abuses that we have been, it goes. Yeah. One of the things that surprises me is that, for instance, I mean, those who benefited from my attitude, the attitude of our party, that come what may, even if it is by one vote you have lost, you have accepted, don't even go for a recount.
That's how far you are committed.
Yeah,
even to the extent of one vote.
Yeah, well, that is effectively what happened. It's less than 1%. Yeah. And in terms when the whole thing is being determined on a proportional basis, that is virtually one vote.
Yes.
We didn't even ask for a recount.
No.
Are the same people who supported what Laurent Gbagbo tried to do in La Côte d'Ivoire, which I thought was a very sad and tragic development for both La Côte d'Ivoire and for Africa as a whole. 8 percentage points, over 400,000 votes were the margin between you and the victor. And in those circumstances, to insist that you had won the election and produce all kinds of spurious arguments to support it, for me was an extremely tragic and unfortunate development. Fortunately, one way or another, that matter has been resolved in La Côte d'Ivoire. We want, as always in Ghana, to be in the forefront, to be ahead of issues in the manner in which we organize ourselves. There was a time when, for instance, the whole idea of transparent ballot boxes became an issue in Ghana. Yes. We pressed for it. In the end, it happened. Yes. Photo IDs became an issue. We pressed for it, and it happened. And each one of these developments has contributed to strengthening our electoral system, and therefore also in strengthening the ability of the democratic system in Ghana to take a real foothold in our body politic. Excellent. We want to be able to push the matter further forward. It's a process of always refining and improving your methods. I think of biometric registration, which is that. And my understanding is that Dr. Afarijan and the Electoral Commission are fully committed to it. What I'm hoping is that they're also fully committed to a system which will also include a verification process that will, by and large, eliminate multiple voting. We have elections that are substantially free of irregularities. It's extremely difficult for anybody to be able to generate any pport for irregular activity, if you like. Let me put it there. We don't want that in Ghana. We want to continue down the path of peaceful development. We have a major task ahead of us. Which is the economic transformation of our country. How we can move from the economy which we have had for virtually the last 100 years of being primarily a raw material exporting country, gold, cocoa, timber. Today we have another raw material. I mean, it's an exciting one for everybody, but the way in which it is being dealt with is essentially yet another raw material, which is crude oil, which is being also exported in its crude form to markets abroad. Those kind of economies, and you're a well-educated, well-informed young man, go through the economic histories of all countries and tell me which country has made substantial progress and created genuine prosperity for the mass of its people, relying on the production and export of raw materials. There's not one. All the countries in the world that have been able to assure their populations of a decent standard of living are those that have applied technology and value addition to their own wealth. If it is a question of natural resources, as the index between natural resources and wealth, Africa would be the richest continent in the world. Right. Yeah, because most of the world's natural resources are here. They're here in abundance in our own country. Look, we have bauxite, manganese, gold, timber, now crude oil. We have them all here in abundance. And yet, our people remain substantially poor. So that it tells you that it is the hope, the human addition, the mind, the development of technology, the application of technology into economic activity. That is what we talk about when you talk about industrialization. Essentially, that is all it is.
Indeed, and it comes back to education.
And a lot of it comes back to education.
I will take my last break. And then when we come back, you will tell us a bit about the upcoming Liberty lecture. Okay. Your first Made in Liberty lecture that you want to bless, a society of opportunities, I believe. We'll take our last break. Welcome back. You've been listening to Nana, and he says the missing link is the human bit, the technology that will transform the raw materials we have in abundance. And that is the philosophy behind his desire, his intent, his dream to transform the economy of Ghana. Bottom line is education. Nana, you are given the first Liberty Lecture of the Dankwa Buzia Dankwa Institute, which is a Media Research and Policy Analysis Center. I have an invitation card here. Now, this is Thursday,
right,
August 18th,
right,
and it will start at 7.
That's
of
right.
course, because of the Ramadan.
Yeah.
But people are supposed to be seated anytime from 6, but you start speaking at 7.
Right.
Yes, but a society of opportunities. What are you telling us, Nana?
First of all, the whole idea of the date, the Liberty Lecture, I think in itself is significant.
Okay.
The lecture should have taken place on the 4th of August, but on that day, unfortunately, I was outside the country. I was in South Africa.
Criminal libel.
Yes.
Another milestone in the public service.
Absolutely. I was there, so I couldn't make it. So it's now it was put forward to the 18th. But the date of the 4th of August is one of the great dates in Ghanaian history. 4th August 1897 was the day that Mensa Saba, Casely Hayford, and the others met in Cape Coast to found the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, which was the body that came into being to defend the right and the ownership of our chiefs and people to our lands. In the late 19th century, the British wanted to expropriate our lands. They brought a bill called the Crown Lands Bill, whereby the lands of Ghanaians were going to become part of the property of the British monarch, like what they had did in Southern Africa,
yes,
in Kenya, in South Africa, etc. The Aborigines Rights Protection Society is a group that came into being to fight for our control of our lands, and in the end they succeeded. But it's a very seminal date in Ghana. Just as 50 years later to the day, the United Gold Coast Convention came into being in Sopon. And we are all aware that that was the organization that began the struggle for our national freedom and independence, subsequently out of which came the CPP and the various events of Ghanaian history. So the date itself is an extremely significant date in Ghanaian history, and it tells us about the opportunities that we ourselves have taken to ensure our own sovereignty, to ensure our own self-reliance and development. So out of that, to come into the actual theme of the thing is pursuing the same. How can we create a society where all Ghanaians will share the aspirations of bettering themselves and bettering their society, and by that process create a wealthier, more prosperous, more harmonious, more progressive society? I think that those are the matters that I want to talk about on Thursday. That our goal, that when we talk about the development of our nation and freedom, we're talking about the development of a Ghanaian nation where all citizens of our nation will have access to good quality education, and from there build for themselves the life that they find most appropriate. Go into whatever level of economic and social life that is convenient for them, that suits their temperament and their psyche and their capabilities. And it is the aggregation of all of us acting to exploit these opportunities that then gives us the society of opportunities, that gives us a society of progress, that gives us a society that addresses the fundamental concerns that we have today: mass poverty, backwardness, difficulties that confront the Ghanaian people. I think that if we can have a social focus on opportunity, that we want to enlarge the space for each citizen of our country, not just enlarge the space for his freedom, personal freedoms, critical. No robot has ever been able to invent anything of merit in human history. Yeah. Inventions and creations and innovations come out of the interplay of free spirits and thinking that allows you. We want that. And at the same time, to allow people the space to be able also to take care of themselves, i.e. the material and economic aspect of their life, because the society is encouraging that. Somebody asked a question about small-scale enterprises. I think it's an excellent area, because at the end of the day, even in the most developed societies of the West, the United States of America, Germany, France, Britain, It is the small-scale enterprises that provide the bulk of employment in the society.
Yeah.
Today's America, 60% of employment in American life comes not from the vast corporations that we've all heard of, Bank of America or Citibank or Lockheed or any of the great corporations of America, but by small-scale enterprises, people who, family concerns, employing 5 to 10 people, but all of them doing something and contributing to the social wheel. And that is exactly the paradigm that I'm interested in developing here in Ghana. If,
wonderful.
God willing, the opportunity is given to us. But I don't know. Things are looking bright, at least from where I stand.
From where I sit in front of the text messages, things are looking very bright indeed. Davia CA says, Nana is a well-traveled man, and he should tell us all his views on hawking on our streets and what his government is going to do about that. Nana, don't you think the nature of our roads is an indication that the NPP did not do much in the road sector? That's interesting.
We double the amount of roads we inherited.
Well, as compared to what we were made to.
The roads, the spread of roads in our country at the time we took power, from independence up to date, within 8 years, Kufuor's administration doubled that. So
I think the evidence is clear.
Yes, but it still doesn't mean that it has all been done. There's still a lot more to be done. Yeah, but I think that Kufuor's government did a good job.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's the last text message. They're asking to see you in the Volta region very quickly because they are fed up of the NDC. But
oh, really? Wow. We're talking about a tsunami in Ghanaian politics.
Exactly. On that note, we are very grateful to you.
I'm very, very happy.
Multi-TV, the entire multimedia network. You've been live on Joy.
I see.
Yes, Joy FM as well. And all the production crew and everybody in here is so happy you were here with us.
Thank you very much. I hope one day you'll have me again.
Oh, yes. And this will be repeated tonight at 11 p.m.
All right.
So we are very, very grateful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yes,
I'm very grateful to come. Thank you.
On Minority Caucus, we promise and we deliver. We promised you the man, Nana, and you've seen for yourself. Thank you for being with us. And Minority Caucus will continue to be about you. Good night.